You're standing in the bread aisle at Loblaws, reaching for that familiar plastic bag with the cheerful logo you've trusted since childhood. But what if I told you that loaf might contain ingredients banned in the European Union? What if that whole wheat label is hiding something your body definitely doesn't want? Keep watching. Because by the end of this video, you'll never look at Canadian bread the same way again. Look, I get it. Bread is bread, right? You grab whatever's on sale, make your sandwich, and move on with your life. But here's the thing. The Canadian bread industry has gotten really good at making you think you're buying something healthy when you're actually getting a science experiment wrapped in plastic. And unlike our friends in Europe who've banned half these ingredients, Health Canada is perfectly fine, letting them slide into your morning toast. So let's talk about the 8 Canadian bread brands you need to avoid. And no, this isn't some conspiracy theory nonsense. Understanding what you're actually eating, and maybe getting a little angry about how these companies have been playing us for decades. But first, we need to understand something. The bread aisle in your average Canadian grocery store contains roughly 60 different brands. That's 60 chances to make a terrible decision before you even get to the deli counter. The average Canadian eats about 200 grams of bread products every single day. That's almost half a pound, which means if you're eating garbage bread, you're eating a lot of garbage. Now, when I say avoid, I don't mean these brands will immediately send you to the hospital. I mean, they're pumping out products with ingredient lists that read like a chemistry textbook, nutritional profiles that would make a dietitian weep, and price points that somehow convince you you're getting a deal. Spoiler alert, you're not. Let's start with number 8 on our list. And trust me, this one's gonna surprise a lot of you. Number 8, Dempster's White Bread.
Yeah, I know.
Dempster's has been in Canadian households since 1855. Your grandparents bought it. Your parents bought it. You're buying it. But here's what they're not putting on their nostalgic marketing. That classic white bread contains azodicarbonamide. Never heard of it? Most people haven't. It's a dough conditioner that makes bread fluffier and gives it that satisfying squeeze when you grab the bag. Sounds harmless, right? Wrong. Azodicarbonamide is the same chemical used to make yoga mats and shoe soles. I'm not making this up. The same stuff that makes your Lululemon pants stretchy is in your sandwich bread. Now, Health Canada says it's safe in small amounts. It's completely banned in Australia and Europe. The European Food Safety Authority took one look at this chemical and said absolutely not. Meanwhile, Canadians are eating it daily and wondering why their gut health is a disaster. But wait, there's more. That same loaf of Dempster's White contains high fructose corn syrup, which your body processes completely differently than regular sugar, leading to fat storage and insulin resistance. It also packs in about 22 ingredients for something that should only need 5. Flour, water, yeast, salt, maybe a little sugar. That's it. That's bread. Instead, you're getting calcium propionate, sodium stearoyl lactolate, and a bunch of other ingredients you can't pronounce that exist for one reason: shelf life. These companies want that bread to sit on the shelf for 2 weeks without growing mold. Natural bread molds in 3 days. Think about that. Number 7. Wonder Bread Classic White O. Wonder Bread, the bread that supposedly builds strong bodies 12 ways. You know what else builds strong bodies? Let's talk about what Wonder Bread actually is. It's ultra-processed flour that's been stripped of every nutrient it once had, then artificially enriched with synthetic vitamins, so they can legally call it enriched. It's like burning down a forest and planting one tree so you can call it reforested. The glycemic index of Wonder Bread is 73. You know what else has a glycemic index of 73? Pure glucose. Eating Wonder Bread spikes your blood sugar faster than some candy bars. This isn't bread. It's white sugar in loaf form, with enough preservatives to survive a nuclear winter. And here's something that'll really bake your noodle. Wonder Bread's ingredient list includes something called datum, which stands for diacetyl tartaric acid, esters of monoglycerides. This emulsifier helps bind everything together, but studies have linked it to heart muscle damage and arterial plaque buildup. The European Union requires warning labels on products containing it. Canada? Crickets. A single slice of Wonder Bread contains almost zero fiber, barely any protein, and enough sodium that 2 slices give you 10% of your daily limit. You're basically eating flavored air that spikes your insulin and leaves you hungry again in an hour. Fantastic. But at least it's cheap, right? A loaf costs like $3. Know why? Because the ingredients cost about 40 cents. Not food. Number 6. Country Harvest Whole Grains. Now this one makes people defensive because it says whole grains right on the package. It's got that wholesome wheat field on the label. It must be healthy. Right? Wrong. Country Harvest is the master of health washing. They slap whole grains on the label while the first ingredient is still enriched wheat flour. Not whole wheat flour. Enriched wheat flour. That means it's been processed, stripped, and then had synthetic nutrients added back. It's whole grain theater. Check the fiber content. A truly whole grain bread should have at least 3 grams of fiber per slice. Country Harvest. About 1 gram. You'd get more fiber eating a handful of sawdust. Actually, that's not fair to sawdust. But here's where it gets sneaky. They add a tiny amount of whole grains, just enough to technically claim it on the package, while the bulk of the bread is still processed white flour. It's like putting one piece of broccoli on top of a pizza and calling it a salad. The ingredient list reads like a chemistry lab. Calcium sulfate, ammonium chloride, monoglycerides, and sodium stearoylactylate all make appearances. These aren't foods. These are industrial additives that exist to fake the texture and shelf life of real bread. And the sugar content. Each slice has about 3 grams of added sugar. That's almost a full teaspoon. Nobody needs sugar in their bread. Bread isn't supposed to be sweet. But these companies know that sugar is addictive, so they pump it into everything, because addiction equals repeat customers. Here's something that'll really get you going. Country Harvest is owned by Bimbo Bakeries, a Mexican company that's the largest baking company in the world. They're churning out billions of loaves using the cheapest possible ingredients while marketing it as wholesome Canadian goodness. The nationalism is just branding. The bread is garbage. Number 5. Bon matin white enriched bread. Bon matin means good morning in French, which is ironic because there's nothing good about starting your day with this bread. It's another ultra-processed white bread masquerading as a reasonable breakfast choice. The enriched label should be your first red flag. Processed out all the nutrients, then added back a fraction of synthetic vitamins so they could legally claim it has nutritional value. It's like stealing someone's wallet and then giving them back $1 and calling yourself generous. Bon matin contains soybean oil, which sounds harmless until you realize most soybean oil in Canada is made from genetically modified soybeans that are doused in glyphosate, a herbicide the WHO classified as probably carcinogenic to humans. You're not just eating bread, you're eating pesticide residue. The sodium content is also wild. One slice has 230 milligrams of sodium. Eat 2 slices for a sandwich and you're at 460 milligrams before you even add any fillings. For reference, you should be getting around 2,300 milligrams per day total. This bread alone accounts for 20% of that limit. But here's what really gets me about Bon Matin. It's marketed heavily to French-Canadian families with this wholesome Quebec branding. But it's owned by Weston Foods, the same conglomerate that owns Loblaws and has been caught multiple times in bread price-fixing scandals. Remember that? When Canada's biggest grocers colluded to artificially inflate bread prices for 14 years? Bon Matin was part of that. You're not just buying bad bread. You're buying bread from companies that literally conspired to rip you off. Number 4. Villaggio Classico White Villaggio wants you to think you're buying artisan Italian bread. The packaging is all rustic and European looking. There's Italian words on it. It must be authentic, right? Nope. It's the same ultra-processed nonsense as every other brand on this list, just with better marketing. Villaggio is owned by the same parent company as Wonder Bread and Dempster's, which means it's coming from the same factories using the same low-quality ingredients. But Villaggio charges more because of that premium positioning. You're paying an extra $1 or $2 for bread that costs the exact same amount to produce as the cheaper brands. It's the Beats by Dre of bread. Different packaging, same junk. The ingredient list includes monocalcium phosphate, calcium propionate, and soy lecithin. These additives exist to fake the texture of real bread while extending shelf life to absurd lengths. Real Italian bread from an actual bakery goes stale in a day because it's made with flour, water, yeast, and salt. That's it. Villaggio bread can sit on your counter for a week and barely change. That's not because it's good bread. It's because it's so loaded with preservatives that even mold doesn't want to eat it. If mold won't touch it, why are you? That soft, pillowy feel that seems so nice. That's not how bread is supposed to feel. Real bread has structure, density, a crust that means something. This bread feels like a wet sponge because it's been chemically engineered to appeal to people who've never had real bread before. Number 3. Puam Original White Bread. Puam is another Quebec brand that's been around forever, which somehow gives it credibility in people's minds. But longevity doesn't equal quality. Smoking has been around forever too. Doesn't make it good for you. POM's ingredient list is a horror show. Beyond the usual suspects like enriched flour and high fructose corn syrup, it contains something called calcium peroxide. This is a dough conditioner and bleaching agent that makes the bread unnaturally white and extends its shelf life. Here's the fun part. Calcium peroxide is also used in dental procedures and as an antiseptic. It's literally a medical chemical that has no business being in food. But Health Canada allows it, because the industry lobbied hard enough, and the amounts are technically below their arbitrary safety threshold. The bread also contains wheat gluten as an additive, which is different from the gluten naturally occurring in wheat. This added gluten is a concentrated protein extract that's used to make the bread chewier and help it hold together. But for people with gluten sensitivities, this concentrated form can trigger reactions even worse than regular bread. And the nutritional profile. One slice has barely any protein, almost no fiber, and enough carbohydrates to spike your blood sugar into the stratosphere. You'd literally be better off eating a handful of plain flour. At least that doesn't have the added chemicals. Number 2. Great Value White Bread. Walmart's house brand bread is exactly what you'd expect from the company that built its empire on rock-bottom prices and even lower quality. Great Value bread is the absolute cheapest bread you can buy that's still technically bread. Know how they keep costs so low? By using the absolute worst ingredients legally allowed. The flour is the lowest grade available. The oils are the cheapest possible. The preservatives are maxed out to ensure the bread lasts forever because they can't afford to have product going bad. Great Value bread contains tertiary butyl hydroquinone, or TBHQ, a preservative derived from petroleum. Yes, petroleum. The same stuff that goes in your car. A study by the Environmental Working Group found that TBHQ can cause ADHD symptoms in children, stomach tumors in lab rats, and DNA damage. But sure, put it in bread that kids eat every day. No problem. The bread also has partially hydrogenated oils, which are trans fats. Trans fats were supposed to be banned in Canada as of 2018, but manufacturers found loopholes. If the amount per serving is below a certain threshold, they don't have to list it, so they just reduce the serving size to make the math work. 2 slices probably puts you over that threshold, but legally they don't have to tell you. Here's what kills me about Great Value bread. People buy it because they're on a budget, which I totally understand. But you're not saving money if you're destroying your health. The medical costs down the line from eating this garbage will far exceed whatever you saved buying cheap bread. Number 1. McGavin's Original White Bread. McGavin's takes the top spot for worst Canadian bread. And honestly, it wasn't even close. This bread is everything wrong with the industrial food system wrapped up in one depressing plastic bag. First, the ingredients. McGavin's contains over 30 ingredients for something that should have 5. It's got the azodicarbonamide we talked about earlier, plus calcium peroxide, plus datum, plus sodium stearoylactylate, plus about 6 different preservatives. But here's what really sets McGavin's apart in the worst way possible. The sugar content. Each slice has 4 grams of added sugar. That's more than a lot of cookies. You're eating dessert bread and calling it a sandwich. The sodium is also off the charts. At 290 milligrams per slice, you're looking at 580 milligrams for a basic sandwich. Add some deli meat and you're well over 1,000 milligrams for one meal. That's almost half your daily sodium limit in one sandwich. McGavin's also uses something called enriched wheat flour that's been bleached. Bleached flour uses chlorine gas or benzoyl peroxide to artificially whiten the flour. This process destroys whatever nutrients might have survived the initial processing. Then they add back synthetic vitamins and act like they did you a favor. The texture tells you everything you need to know. Real bread has substance. It has weight. McGavin's feels like you're holding flavored air. That's because it's been so chemically manipulated that the gluten structure is barely holding together. The only reason it maintains its shape is because of all the additives working overtime. And the price point? It's marginally cheaper than buying real bread from an actual bakery, but people choose it anyway because it lasts longer and seems more convenient. But that convenience is costing you your health. So what should you actually be buying? Look for bread with 5 ingredients or less. Whole grain flour should be the first ingredient, not enriched flour. The bread should go stale in a few days because that's what real bread does. And honestly, buy from local bakeries when possible. Yes, it costs more. Yes, it goes bad faster, but you're eating real food made by actual people instead of chemicals from a factory. The Canadian bread industry has spent decades convincing you that ultra-processed garbage is normal. It's not. Your grandparents didn't eat this stuff. Their bread came from bakeries, not factories. It had ingredients they could pronounce and nutritional value that was real, not synthetic. So next time you're in that bread aisle reaching for the usual brand, maybe think twice. Read the label, count the ingredients. Ask yourself if you really want to eat yoga mat chemicals and petroleum preservatives. Because these 8 brands are counting on you not asking those questions. They're counting on you staying uninformed, staying convenient, and staying sick. Thanks for watching. Now go throw out whatever bread you've got in your pantry and start over. Your body will thank you.